judgment, decision making, memory, and the ability to learn. These are some of the greatest components of a human life on their day to day activities. It becomes a challenge when you find yourself in a situation when you, as an individual, cannot make your own decisions. Now, becoming a dependent on alcohol or other drugs means you rely on substance to feel good or normal or to cope with everyday life. Hello and welcome to the Real Talk Show right here on TYP, where we bring you nothing but the very best and addressing issues that are affecting the young ones and obviously trying to figure out how best these issues can be resolved. Today we are very privileged and I'm honored to be on this show, getting to, stretch down or talk about one of the very most important topics. And today we're going to be talking about alcohol, drug addiction, separating fact from fiction, knowing for the fact that people have got their own ways of explaining drug addiction, why they have been, and also defending their reasons of why they have gotten themselves into that situation. But before we get down to this discussion, I would love to say a very big thank you and welcome to today's discussion, not forgetting on the winners that we had last week, and obviously a very interesting topic that we had last week as well, where we had an interesting build up from the Dahai to the Bahai. And of course, all this is all roads lead to the regional adolescent health endeavor. Now, joining me in today's discussion, as you can see, I am blessed because I have very interesting people who are packed with knowledge and wisdom, if I may put it like that. And so on my guest list for today, I have Tai Tu, who is a musician and an activist, and is also actually one of the biggest ambassadors of the TYP that we all know about. And I also have Mr. Roosevelt Kasonso, who is a therapist, a counselor, and an author. Just to mention, one of his books is The Invisible Observer. And also I have Emmanuel Hakaningi, who is a counselor at the Great North Rehab Center. With my guest list, you definitely are assured of getting the very most insight of tackling and how to get down with this issue. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon. Thank you.
I heard two voices, the rest I didn't hear.
Good afternoon, Faith.
Thank you. And of course, not forgetting my very own sign language interpreter. With him makes life easier because on a TYP, we want everyone to be educated and never to be left out. This is Shadrach Chansa. In your very own special way, Shadrach, how do you welcome us and say thank you? Okay, if you didn't get it, it's okay. So now let's get down to our bond of controversy today, getting down to our discussion. Today we're talking about alcohol and drug abuse. And of course, this is something that has been affecting most of the youth and even the elderly people actually. Now to get on with the discussion, I have on my list, the first two questions are going to be going to Emmanuel. Emmanuel, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Faith, and good afternoon, viewers.
Okay, you look too serious. I'm even scared now. I'm wondering, say, okay, am I seen to be okay in this place? Please smile a little bit. Don't scare me. I might be a victim of what we're talking about.
Exactly. No, this is a topic that covers everything, and it's a topic for everybody. And we need to smile. You are very much right when you are discussing about such issues.
Thank you. So my first question to you would be, what inspired you to become an addiction counselor, and what training have you received?
Thank you, Faith. I'll start with the second question over the kind of qualification that I have. So I'm a psychologist, which is a bachelor's degree in psychology itself. So I studied from UNZA. Well, that's where I acquired my bachelor's degree qualification in psychology. And what inspired me, coming to the other question, to become an addiction counselor. We know that there are a lot of addictions, so including the one we are discussing today, the alcohol part. So is mostly the number of problems that we have out there, especially issues that are affecting the youth. We find that many of the people are facing issues, but they have got no one to talk to. And at the certain point, some of them, instead of just using better ways of coping those issues, they end up going either to commit suicide, start abusing alcohol, or do other illicit behaviors. So my major motivation to become an addiction counselor is mostly centered on the problems that people are facing, and mostly these are stress, anxiety, and other issues. We talk about financial issues. So the problems that people are facing are the many major motivation for me to become an addiction counselor.
Thank you so much. Now, building from what you just mentioned, your day-to-day life seems to be a very busy one. Can you just run us through on how you work at your rehabilitation center, and how do you access and address the specific needs of each client? Knowing pretty well to say in a day, you obviously have more than 2 people coming to you. How do you manage that?
Thank you. So I'd like to mention that most of the people that visit our facility, the rehabilitation center, I would say the majority of them, usually the problem that they present with are related to alcohol and substance use. So when someone comes in, though, it's not an easy thing for someone to make a bold decision to come and seek rehab or to come and seek help. So when we receive them, the first thing that we do, especially those that comes with drug-related issues, we do an assessment. So I don't just sit alone in an assessment. Usually we are 2 of us. We have a psychiatrist as well as a psychologist. So during the initial assessment, the psychiatrist will try to find out the biological issues that has been affected with the problem that the person has presented. Talk about alcohol. Maybe there is a liver damage, so you can't proceed with counseling when someone is having a biological issue. So you need to at least do hand in hand. So if someone comes with a problem of alcohol, drugs, during an assessment, we try by all means to find out what is it that has been affected. So when we will come, we assess them, and on the psychological part, you measure their willingness as you are starting the progress. As you are starting the process, you measure the willingness of the person. Is this person realizing that what they are doing is a problem? And the majority of them, I would like to mention that they don't realize that it's a problem. They see it as a way of coping, as a way of living. But only people, the families, the friends are the ones that manage to see to say this person is having a problem. And majority of them are being brought. So when someone is coming in, we assess them, then you make a treatment plan. And once you make a treatment plan, that's where now counseling begins. You give them the schedule of the days that you are going to be meeting them. And once they start following up that schedule, it becomes so easy to discuss about how they started, how they are going so far. Are they realizing what they are hoping to achieve if they continue their behavior or if they stop? So definitely this is how our day looks like when we are receiving the people for the first time. We start with an assessment, make a treatment plan, then you keep on helping the person. But on the other side, if the person is found that maybe there has been some effects of the drug or some effects of depression that has been caused, they are also put on medication. So that is coming from the other end, the psychiatrist, because sometimes their mood is not okay, and counseling on its own, it cannot help maybe initially. So you require some kind of medication for that person to stabilize. Then now you have a talk. But the long-lasting solution goes with counseling.
Okay. Now, on a few challenges that you just mentioned, and I believe it's rare that you find a drug addict or an alcohol addict confess or admit that they're actually addicted. So when they come to seek for medical attention at your facility, how do you make them understand to say, yes, you are addicted? How do you get them to accept? Because I believe that in whatever situation, acceptance is the best key to change. So how do you get these people to accept to say, this is actually happening and I need to seek this? Or maybe sometimes you just force it on them.
Okay, Okay, thank you so much for that question, Faith. So usually, truly speaking, yes, it's a thing to make someone understand that they are addicted, especially the word itself.
Yes.
Addiction.
Addiction.
No one would confess that. However, we try. The first thing that we do is to psycho-educate them. So there are stages to addiction. No one just starts today to use a substance and then gets addicted today. Usually it's a gradual process. So there are stages. And as you're starting with the stages, there might be an initial use, all those 7 stages. So usually we try to learn them through, say, okay, where is your drinking now? How many bottles of alcohol? How many sticks of cigarettes? Are you smoking? Are you drinking? So usually when they understand it to say, oh, so addiction is not something that you can measure to say, okay, when I am using this substance at this point in time, I'm going to be addicted, then I can stop before I get addicted. No, but they don't see the stages. But when you psychoeducate them about the stages involved in addiction and where it comes to an addiction itself, they get to understand. So I think this is the level where
I'm at, yeah.
Because you just ask, how many bottles do you drink? So when they understand to say, okay, this is how much I use my substances, this is how much I smoke, this is how much I drink, and then when I'm using this amount, then this is what it translates when it
to me. Okay.
Then they understand, oh, I think
that one is a good one. That one is a good one. Okay, now let me go on to Mr. Kansoso. Please correct me. Is that how your name is pronounced?
Mr. Kasonso.
Mr. Kasoso, thank you so much. Welcome, and thank you for joining us on today's show, sir.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to have joined you.
Now, please tell us about yourself. Obviously, in the first place, I couldn't pronounce your name, so maybe you can just tell the viewers a little bit about yourself. Okay. Okay, since Mr. Casoso is having a challenge, so maybe I can move my question to type 2. Are you there?
I'm here.
So in backstage, I heard someone say, I'm not much of a talker, I'm a listener and an observer. Are you sure? So when I ask my question, I'll be observant?
I'll give you 2-word answers, then we can stay down.
Welcome. I'm glad to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Okay, now it's no secret that you're actually a goodwill ambassador and someone who has used their platform to speak against drugs and alcohol abuse, among other issues. Can you share a personal story about how you have been affected by substance abuse, either directly or indirectly, especially with the industry that you're in? There has been a notion that musicians have got a certain way of getting their energies on stage and in doing certain things that they do, which I don't know about because I'm not a musician. So would you tell us how, what you have learned about drug abuse, either directly or indirectly? What is your personal story?
Well, having been in the industry for quite some time, I think I have seen people do very crazy things. I must say, earlier, the beginning of my music journey, especially when I got to the studio and released the music, obviously being a young person and I would say being easily influenced in believing that for you to really look like things are happening, you need to do certain things, you need to vibe a certain way, smoke a few things, and like that is where the coolness comes in, but
getting the appearance.
obviously, I mean, I'm gonna use me as an example. I wouldn't want to talk about certain people that I have seen, get affected with these things, but I'll talk about myself. This is something that I even put into song on my last album, the song called Testimony, where I say something like, a day wouldn't go without, having a bottle. I'm a person who's smoked the weeds, who's taken cocaine, and just the life of the party, the coolness. And one thing I actually realized when I look back, well, I'm not into those things anymore. One thing I realized when I look back is that there was a pattern. Like, every time that you wake up, that's where your mind goes. I need to take something for me to feel like I'm part of a certain crew, a certain clique, and I need to sniff something for me to just feel like, this is life. I've made it. Let me do this. So it's like you rarely have time to actually focus on a future, to actually think about your purpose or why you're doing what you're doing. So it became so crazy for me that, fortunately, I don't know what I would call it, if it was just strong will to realize that being around a certain audience, being around a certain pattern was making me fall into that trap of, which if I was still in a certain light, I think I would have been addicted to some of those things. But it had to take a step of distancing myself from certain conversations, certain behaviors, certain places for me to get to where I needed to be and understand that this is killing me. But if I'm to live life and really fulfill purpose, as he put it up there, I need to really check my circle, check which doors I'm entering, check which doors I've left open to, influence me into doing certain things. So I think I'm in a good space now, and I would tell somebody out there, like, that's the trap. It's not the coolness. That is your death if you actually find yourself hooked to that.
Now, when you talk about eat your death, perhaps a few of us would love to know, how were you affected the time that you were in that state?
Remember, I mentioned it becomes like a pattern. Like every day, you're not really thinking of goals that you once upon a time set and said, by the time I'm at this age, I need to do this. I need to have, achieved A, B, C, D. But now your circle revolves around the same drug abuse. You just can't wait to get your next high. You can't wait for the next party. You can't wait for the next craziness. And years are going, and as we know it, time waits for nobody. In the process, you find that your future is ruined. Even people linked to you are also disturbed because the decisions that you're making ends up affecting them as well, because there are people who will look up to you and look for certain doors to be opened because of your life. But then if your life is cut short, the person behind you's life is also cut short. So you find that it's not really affecting you, but everybody else linked to you. Yeah, I think I'll end there for now.
Okay. That the ending for here for now sounds like you saying, okay, I'm not going to talk much. But anyway,
no,
what's your take on how the music?
I don't want to say a lot and then take over the show. And there's speakers there, the pros that I still want to listen to as well, because even as I still interact with a lot of young people, a lot of people who are facing certain challenges, I'm looking forward to listening to the qualified people in this area, because I know that I will say a word or two to somebody out there who's not watching, so I don't want to I'll say what I'm going to say, add where things that I need to say, but I also want to listen to the guys as well, and grow a bit more.
Okay, cool. Anyway, for those of you who have just joined us on different platforms, we're glad that you have joined us. And today we're simply looking at one of the most important topics, the one that has claimed lives, one that has destroyed and made people be so redundant in their thoughts. And this is alcohol and drug abuse. I have a cool and interesting panel of guests, and we are just getting started. Leading me to the second question for you, Taitu. What's your take on how the music industry makes substance abuse seem so cool, like you just mentioned it? And how do you deal with the pressure to fit in? Of course, I can relate, but maybe for somebody who wants to hear it from you, what are the others doing in the media industry, especially when it comes to using substance abuse? Do you think it is something that everybody should say, okay, it is a way of life, I cannot do without it? Or perhaps you have a different narrative that can help even as we get to this very huge industry? Because most of the people, especially teenagers and the adolescents, it's more, musicians are the role models of most of us, if you would agree with me. Do you agree with
I
me
agree.
or not?
I do, because I have first-hand experience with
Mm,
with a lot of people and the things that they will say, which
yeah.
actually makes me realize every day that the millions of people that get to see what I do, that get to hear the words that come out of this mouth, I
Mm,
get to be responsible for a lot of
exactly.
decisions that they get to make. So,
Mm,
you know, there's a lot of responsibility on my head, looking at the platform that I have and the access to certain individuals out there. So it's it's a debate, because some will say it's you, the artist, that bring this influence on a lot of young people to think that
exactly.
drug abuse, for example, is the coolest thing you can do, because obviously there's music out there that will really praise the drinking, praise the drugs, and whatever. Then there's artists out there who will say, no, I'm just singing about the reality of the things that are going on around me. So
Yeah.
there's a thin line there. Yes, there are some artists who will get careless and make it seem as if that's the cool. That's a vibe. You
Yeah.
need to live like this to feel like that's what life is about, and which is a wrong message at the end of the day. So yes, music can influence people into doing bad decisions, and at the same time, music again will still educate them. So the responsibility comes down to the artists themselves. Just like whatever song that you want to write, one has to question themselves: what impact am I creating out there? Am I killing people? Am I adding to their life, or am I taking away from their life? So it's
Yeah.
a heavy responsibility to understand exactly what your purpose is. Because if you are praising the drugs, you are praising all of this, yes, so many young people will fall, because some will idolize and take everything that you say as Bible truth. So we really need to watch what we do and be that responsible person, looking at the numbers that we get to influence in everyday life.
I like that one. Maybe we can just go through our comments that we have before we go back to Mr. Castleton. And comments from Facebook, those that are following us. Okay, so this one is from Nelly Lopez Kabombeka. This topic is interesting, especially this on the ground it's happening. Very true, very true. Gracious Mundi Muzaza. We are currently having a lot of alcohol and drug abuse cases with the youths. It's great that you have brought this topic at the table. Thank you so much, and we're glad that we're able to speak right to your heart. Still, Nelly, alcohol and drug abuse is what youths are addicted to, and that is leading most of the girls to be involved in sexual activities, which is very true, very true. Rebecca Mulenga is saying true drug abuse does not just affect the people abusing it, but also affects the people around that person because they will have to cope up with their behavior, which is very annoying. Have you ever stayed with a drunkard? Very annoying. This one is saying hashtag tie too. You are right. It's all about that personal decision. Period. Personal decision is the best way to yourself change. Mundia saying personal decision matters if you make the right decision. Thank you so much for those comments. Please keep them coming as we get down. Of course, let me read this one, and then we go to another question. Because of peer pressure, I tried, but the instincts in me couldn't allow me to continue, but replaced it with what I loved doing and changed my mind about it, and I'm now free. This is very true. That is a very, very honest opinion from Nelly over there. So don't allow yourself to get into these drugs because you're pressured by the group of friends. I think we can learn from Taitu's story. Personal decision and also just knowing who you are and your purpose is going to help you to refrain from certain activities. Mr. Casolo, I'm glad I have you back. Welcome back.
Oh, thank you. Yes.
Okay, now just like any other person, welcome to the show and please tell us about yourself, apart from the little introduction that I gave earlier.
Okay, so a counselor, a therapist, and an author of a book which is titled The Invisible Observer. I had struggled with alcohol and drug addiction for a period of 20 years. So I think my life there started taking a negative turn. Then family realized that actually this problem was more of bigger than me. So we sought help. That's how I underwent treatment. And after coming out of treatment, that's how I ventured into helping people who are struggling with these different vices.
Well, thank you. Now, allow me to say congratulations on your book, which is the Invincible Observer. Is it a life story in there?
Yes, I've shared some of my experiences with different addictions, and I've also just gone into depth to talk about what addiction is, because there are so many misconceptions in society surrounding drug and alcohol addiction. Because when you find somebody drinking alcohol on a regular basis or using drugs, people are quick to judge and jump to a conclusion. People will say this person is responsible, this person doesn't just have willpower or doesn't have self-control. But usually the alcohol and the drug that you are seeing that person resorting to, that's more of a coping mechanism. So there's actually, there isn't any person who starts using drugs with the intention of becoming an addict. Just like there isn't any person who starts drinking alcohol with the intention of becoming alcoholic. But an addiction, we consider it a progressive brain disease. So it's a progressive brain disease in the sense that the reason why someone will start doing something is going to be different to what will keep them doing. So most people start out of curiosity, because I remember, I think the first time I tried out alcohol, it was out of curiosity and I wanted to fit in a particular group of friends. But the more we started doing it, it now became a coping mechanism. You find that when you're stressed, you resort to drinking alcohol. When you're frustrated, you resort to drinking alcohol until at some point went into dependency, where now it was my body that was pushing me to resort to that coping mechanism. And eventually, that's how it developed into an addiction. So going through that experience, I think it's something that pushed me to maybe try to let people understand the nature of addiction and why addiction is, because there is that debate to say, do people choose to be addicted? So it's something that starts as a choice, but it becomes a medical condition in the long run. Then addiction itself is also characterized by denial and self-deception. Because usually, if a person is using these substances, they won't see how it's negatively affecting them and how it's negatively affecting the people around them. But we also say addiction is a family disease, because when one person is struggling, the whole family is affected. So the family is the one that suffers the most, because that person might not really see the impact that is having on them. So I've shared some of these experiences and also just tried to clear out some conceptions in the book.
Wow, in my head, I am still stuck on 20 years. If you don't mind me asking, at what age did you start the testing of alcohol?
Okay, so I first experimented with marijuana when I was 16 years. I think by then I was in grade 10, because I used to hang around with a bit of some older kids who were regular users. So just by virtue of being found with them, I was curious. Yeah, maybe I could try this and maybe let me look cool, because I want to be associated with such a group. So then from experimenting, it now led into a coping mechanism. From a coping mechanism, I now became dependent. From marijuana, again, also tried out alcohol, and that's how that spell began, which was also characterized by a lot of negative experiences that family sometimes would notice. But for me, I think there was a time when I was in denial that this problem was there. That's why I kept on going. But when things started collapsing around, I had to realize that, no, I think I really need help for this problem.
Now, being in grade 10, I'm meant to believe that you're still a teenager by then, right?
Yes, I was a teenager.
How did that experience of you getting into drugs affect people around you, including yourself as a teenager? Did you have a different perception of how you looked at things, even when to other people it was wrong? Were you rebellious? Were you stubborn? How was it like as a teenager being addicted to these things?
Okay, so if you look at the stages in which we humans develop, we go through about 8 stages of human development. So there is a stage between 13 years to 19 years, which is called identity versus confusion stage. So during those teenage years, teenagers have this tendency to experiment with different lifestyles because they are searching for an identity. So they are usually vulnerable because they usually listen to more of their friends. And then you also have to check the type of role models that they're looking up to. So I think by virtue of me being a teenager when I was 16, I had that age to want to experiment with different lifestyles. And then the company that I was keeping was a toxic company. And obviously now I fell into that trap. So I think everything started going on the wrong, especially at school. It's that thing where you can't concentrate. When you go, you're just planning to actually dodge, go in the bush somewhere. Then it also affected some of that part of school. Yeah.
I wish I can have another episode for this. To you, Mr. Emmanuel, what are some of the common challenges you face in your work with clients struggling with addiction? Because obviously, character over time, the character of the person changes, their thinking changes, even how they look at things changes. So then, how do you work around these common challenges to make sure that a lost soul, for lack of better terms, comes back to view life in a normal way?
Thank you so much, Faith. I'm very happy that I'm surrounded with people who went through this journey of addiction, those people who went through using the substances and these drugs, and here also testifying the end of the story. And truly speaking, that is exactly what I am facing in my career right now. So the challenges mostly, the first one I would say it's acceptance. The person will not accept that I'm addicted to the substance, but onlookers will be able to see to say this person has changed. But the person himself or herself will not agree in any way. They will not to say, okay, but it's not that bad. It's something that I can control. But usually there is no control. When someone has gone over to the point where people are able to notice to say this is a problem, usually there's loss of control at that point. But acceptance to say, okay, truly speaking, I need help. It takes a while, and this is a big challenge. Usually you have to take some time running through all the stages of addiction, discussing with the person, also looking at the past, how they were in terms of productivity and where they are at that particular point in time. So usually acceptance becomes the major challenge. Then also, the other challenge is the approach from the families. I would say maybe now, yes, families are beginning to accept to say it's not deliberately that someone would start using the substance. Yes, the major issue at play at this point in time is peer pressure. But usually, when someone starts using, especially when they get addicted, at that particular point in time, it's not a deliberate thing to do. It's not that they want to be addicted and they stay like that. So usually, families will not be kind enough to have this person find help, but they will maybe stigmatize, calling the person names and the likes to say you don't just want to change, like they want to force the change, but the change cannot be forced on the person, especially someone who's addicted. It takes the acceptance of the person himself or herself to say, okay, I have a problem. Then now they start working on that problem. And usually, even as a counselor, it's just a partnership that you do with the person who is affected. You partner with them or you walk with them down the lane of recovery. It's not imposing the things, but usually from the approach that the families have, they want what they want to happen. They don't want to work with the person, understanding the challenges that they are facing, because usually many of them, once they reach on the dependency, like Mr. Roosevelt has mentioned, it becomes a challenge. Maybe they lack sleep, they lack appetite. So such things affect them if they don't use the substance. So it requires someone who understands to walk down the lane with the person who is struggling. Then also the issue of understanding ambivalence is also a challenge, especially on the society part. Someone would start having the professional help, but that doesn't mean that that person is healed. The person would still have the thoughts here and there to say, but I can still maybe use it for the last time. I can still go back and drink maybe now. I just have to moderate, or I can still smoke just at this wedding or at this particular event and the like. So that ambivalence will not go. The person will still have double thoughts. Should I use? Should I not use? But for those who are unfortunate enough, when they use, now they face the blame. We see, you can't change all those things that they face. So those are some of the issues that we are struggling with, making people understand to say, people, even if they wanted to change, there is an ambivalence that happens. And people need to be understanding to say, okay, it doesn't mean that all the past experiences have been deleted. No, the person would still need the support even when they fall back, even when they relapse. They need to receive the help. And lastly, in terms of challenges, I would say it's very hard to change someone. Yeah, usually people come for counseling with the hope that they will change, but it's not easy, especially in the initial stages. That's why we operate in the rehabilitation center. Sometimes it requires someone to be disconnected from the environment for change to be enforced, and that's why we even admit it. Because the challenge is that you are counseling this side, the person goes out there, meets with the same friends, and then they convince the person to say, but what, look at me, I'm still the same person. I've been smoking maybe for 10 years, for 5 years. So the influence, the environment is not good enough out there. Someone comes from the therapy session, but where are they going? They still find the same environment, and that's a challenge. So usually to try to mitigate that challenge, we even admit people, we get them from the society where they are in, we bring them in our facilities so that whatever is happening, we are able to monitor. Because leaving them out there, especially those that comes just for outpatient program walk-ins, we have a challenge with the environment. Change is difficult in an environment which is stimulating the opposite. So those are some of the challenges that we face. But for those that we admit, we monitor them, we monitor their progress, maybe up to the period of 6 months. Usually we try by all means to manage their challenges.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. It's very hard to talk when you are talking, because in my head I'm like, okay, this is a counselor and I'm literally getting some counsel over here. Well, as we got to title, I would also request that you check your audio. It wasn't very clear on my end. I hope that we can have it later. Title, the last question before we get to, not the last one, before we get to announce our, TYP hamper winners for last week. Telling us your story and what we have come to learn of your experience, and of course what you have witnessed from the point of the young ones. You can agree with me that there's a lot of in Bemba with the teenagers and the youths now, because you see everyone is doing the shisha, because you see everyone is taking this type of alcohol. I must take it. It's like even in school now, teenagers, everyone is just excited about drugs anyway. the shishas, the alcohols, and all those kind of things. Now, knowing for the fact that you did mention earlier that having a purpose would drive one to make a personal decision to be a better person. Now, in a situation where this is a young person who probably they can't even think about purpose, what is the best way to reach out to the young ones, to just tell them to say, yo, you can't go where everybody is going. This thing is going to lead you have, messed up thoughts, going to lead you to have a messed up life. How do you get through with this apart from purpose?
It's very difficult. It's not the easiest of things to get to a person who's enjoying a certain lifestyle and say this route will get you to crazy distraction. But I think that's where maybe some of us come in with what we're trying to do to say, you can still kind of try and be cool and not get lost, So with experience.
Yeah, I like the cool and don't get lost. Cool and don't get lost. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, with the experience of, being in that situation a lot of times, it's like when you approach a young person and speak about it, they'll try to dispute. But then because you have this vast experience with that type of lifestyle, you find that in the process, they get to listen to you for as long as when you have that conversation, you're not coming from a point of judgment, because with judgment comes a lot of resistance. So if you can just try and come down to whoever's level and try to see what they see, that way a conversation will be had and you can actually reach out to that person. So obviously, even like somebody mentioned earlier, I think I said it in the beginning, and I'm happy that somebody mentioned it also, to say the family will get to suffer and the people around will get to suffer, but the person involved in it will never really pick it up to say, my behavior has changed and I'm really bad. So one in the family has to take the step and just, you reach out, because it's difficult, yes. And one definitely needs help as to how they can open up to a person and try to encourage them and to move away from those vices. That's where I think institutions are there to want to go and seek help. How do we handle this situation? We have this young person in our family and this is going on. We don't know how to approach the person. So advice will be given, definitely. But yeah, so for a person in my position, again, it's a matter of you identify, because even now I can sit next to a person and know exactly what it is that they're messing around with. It'll be easy for me to say, you know what, I know you're from doing this. So, this thing will take you to a certain path. Or sometimes I won't really go straight in it. I'll just say, do you experience this? Did you find yourself doing certain things? And the same time, the person will say, how did you know? Then that opens a gate for me to offload a lot of what I can offload. And,
I've been there, bro.
Yeah. Sometimes I avoid that because with some of them, I know there's a professional counselor here who has a whole different approach and stuff. But, I avoid saying I've been there, because then, again, I'm trying to say they might feel like I'm judging them. Exactly. So what I say is just get down and just have a normal conversation where I take myself out of the equation, but just talk about life in general. Then talk about the mistakes that we get to make them understand that, yes, because we're seeking identity, we're seeking to be part of certain groups, we are seeking that acceptance from certain people, because a lot of people run away from feeling lonely, they run away from feeling depressed, and all these things will lead somebody to start taking that, like he mentioned also, in the process, it becomes dependency. After you try to fit in, and next thing now your body is the one that's calling for it, and now you can't help it. This is where some people now start stealing things from home, start robbing people to support, the drug thing that's going on with that system. So I think, like I say, purpose. You that has seen it and identified that this person is struggling with this problem, you get down to their level, try to see what exactly or how that thing started, and you offload what you can offload to help that person. The biggest thing is, for as long as they feel loved and they don't feel that judgment, people always open up and speak to you.
Wow, I like it. This is a very huge and big topic. I wish we had like 1 week just talking about it. But anyway, as long as we say Jatagamana Jagayosha. But before we get to wind up on today's show, please allow me to just announce our winners for last week's Real Talk show on TYP Hampton. I hope these guys are watching though. So the first one is Catherine Mafukochi Pasha. If you're watching, you just won yourself a TYP hamper. This could be a t-shirt. I don't know what it is, but I guess it could be communicated to you. But obviously, it was a t-shirt. We also have Dorothy Temwani Kayalula. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Please forgive me if I messed it up. I'm Tonga by tribe, Napapata. And finally, we have Kababu Mukonda. So these are our 3 winners from last week's show. Congratulations, guys. And we pray that you are still continuing to be a part and parcel of our every Friday conversations. Now, getting to wind up, my last question for you, Mr. Kasonso. Can you describe the moment when you realized you needed help for your addiction, and what steps did you take to recover through that journey?
Okay, so like I had mentioned, an addiction has got a characteristic of self-deception and denial. So at some point, I was in denial of the fact that I had a problem with drugs and alcohol. And sometimes my family would mention it to say, we feel this thing is slowing you down, but I would obviously get upset and saying, what are they saying? And I would usually compare myself to somebody who's actually worse. And say, I think I'm better off because I'm able to do some husbands and whatnot. So after continuing with the use, I think I reached a point in my life that I can consider as rock bottom. So rock bottom is the lowest point where if you don't stop, you probably even have to die or something. And it's that point where I remember someday I was sick. Instead of going to the hospital to get medicine, I went to buy some whiskey. Then when I drank that whiskey, and I felt better. So I was like, I think this was the wrong thing to do. And if I continue on this path, I'm not going to be alive, maybe in the next 2 or 3 months. And it's at that point that I started contemplating to say, I think something needs to be done about this. But as I was thinking, family also had seen that, no, I think this problem, maybe sometimes he tries, but he fails. So that's how family reached out to say, maybe you need some help and we can get some professionals to help you overcome this. And by then I was open to the idea because my thoughts were driving me towards making that change. Yes, so I think that's those are the steps that happened.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. I think his network has equally bad. Mr. Emmanuel, just building up from what Mr. Kasonso has said, there's family involved in this whole journey of healing. What advice do you have for families and loved ones of individuals struggling with addiction, and how can they best support their loved ones? Because many times you find family tends to give up. Because they've gone to Vape, when they come back, they are stealing relish, they are stealing money, a whole lot of things, and you just find that parents get fed up. So what advice do you have for them to help in the recovering of this particular?
Thank you, Faith. I would say that that is true. Parents give up, and if they give up, then that is the loss. The moment they give up, that is the end. You only lose when you give up, finally. So usually, to the family, I would encourage them not to give up. It's a very difficult journey to try being there for someone who's not seeing what you are seeing. Because they talk. The substance you are using is not good. They see, but the person might not see in that way. So usually, the best approach is to bring them closer. Because the moment you distance them, don't expect that they will just suffer alone. Where they will go is to their friends. Don't expect that if I distance myself from this child who is using the substance, then this person, now they realize that I'm upset and then they come back to me. No, in fact, that's when now you are even sending them to the friends because that's where they will get comfort. Some of them usually they don't use those substances in their homes. Some of them, they don't use those substances in the comfort of the family members. They enjoy using those substances outside the family members. They enjoy those substances maybe when they go with their friends. So if you create a good rapport with them, where most of the times you welcome them and have a chance to talk to them, you are creating an enabling environment for them to consider change. But the moment you distance them from yourself, where are they going to go? Definitely to those friends who will welcome them. So if we don't welcome them, then their friends will definitely welcome them. So we have a duty as caregivers, as guardians, to always be there for these people, as painful as it could be, because the moment we give up, that's the moment we are now sending them away to those friends who even introduced them to those substances. But at the certain time, their parents who are seeing their children or their brothers, and maybe for those siblings who are seeing that someone is just starting, please don't wait until it becomes worse. It's important to seek help when the chances of winning are too high. When someone is just starting, chances of that person coming around are high, unlike when someone has stayed for 5 years in that path. So usually be a keen observer in the home. The moment you see certain signs of someone using the substance, especially for those that it comes to open up to say, yes, I smoke, yes, I drink, seek help before it's too late. Because the more you wait, the harder it will become for you to redeem that person when they reach those extreme stages. Yes, other people comes back,
Okay.
but I think we have observed others don't come back. So if you see your brother, your child starting using the substance, seek help before it's too late, because chances of returning that person back to the normal path is high when someone is starting. For those that have gone too high in terms of using, still don't give up on them, because you only lose them the moment you say, this is your life, continue. Then they will definitely continue as well. So be
Okay.
supportive, be kind.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Emmanuel. Tai, too, this is the last question for you as we get to wind up. What message do you hope for your music conveys to those who may be struggling with addiction or substance abuse? And how do you hope your platform can be a source of hope and inspiration to recover?
I'll link it to what I said earlier on about realizing and talking about one realizing their purpose, because I believe this gift was not just given to me to just enjoy myself, but there's messages I need to put out. So even with every lyric I pen down, I'm thinking somebody out there must speak something from it. I must build, be it a love song where I'm helping build somebody's relationship, be it one where I'm just praising and glorifying God, because at the end of the day, He stands on love. And it's love that will make sure that a lot of these situations that we face are actually sorted. Because when you are told to love your neighbors, you love yourself, already that speaks volumes. Because if you see somebody in crisis, you take it upon yourself, because you have to feel it as if it's you that's also in that crisis, and see how you can handle and help out the next person. So I'm hoping every song that I get to put out my platform um, will build not just young people, even grown people. There's some that are experiencing the same difficulties, not really
Yeah,
know
yeah,
how to break away from these things. So,
that's true.
positivity in the songs, and just to be as realistic as possible, and not really make it seem like you need to get to that high level for you to survive certain challenges, but to just come down to where everybody can relate. So my music's all about understanding your purpose, just spreading that love and just that unity, because that's what will save us all at the end of the day. Look at my t-shirt. Jesus is King. Acknowledge Him, and you have an understanding of a lot of things.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. So we come to the end of the show. I don't know if any of you has anything to say in 5 seconds.
I just want to encourage anyone who's struggling to please open up, reach out to the center. There's so much help that can be given. Then I think I've also shared some experiences and just gone into depth in this book, The Invisible Observer. So you can also, it's on Amazon, and it's also at Great Northwood Rehab Center. Yes, to be in bookstores. Yes.
Thank you. Anyone else, Mr. Emmanuel, tied to anything?
Thank you so much. I just want to appreciate our viewers for listening to us, and to you for hosting us. This is so encouraging. And to the viewers, I'll just encourage you to say, even if you are not the one who is affected, as long as you are living with someone whenever you have a challenge, be it stress or what, reach out for help so that you become a good helper. For those that are struggling, feel free to reach out for help. Otherwise, this is mental health. It's not just around the substances. There are other issues related to this. So reach out for help whenever you are feeling that you are not in the right state of mind. Thank you.
Mr. Tattoo, sir.
The biggest one right now is thanks to everybody who's been supporting this guy over the years. And a message to do with this: don't be the one that's busy pointing at people, but come on, create a solution, be a brother's keeper. And when you see a problem, try by all means, take it upon yourself to see how can we help this person, and just be positive, show love.
Okay, with that said, I don't know if I have any messages that I could read in a few minutes before we go. Okay, this one is coming from Gracious Mundi Muzaza. I almost started taking alcohol when I was at secondary school due to group influence, wanting to feel how others felt when they take it. But I sat and rethought of the outcome of taking alcohol and what damages it will cause to my health. That's how I drove myself away from group influence and alcohol. Very good decision. Run, flee, in fact. This one is Sangose. I hope I read that correct. Let's work together to build a healthier and happier community. Let's educate ourselves about drug abuse. Together, we can make a difference in the lives of those affected. Thank you so much. That is true. Remember, if you're not infected, you are affected. Supporting those struggling with alcohol and drug addiction in our communities involve a diverse approach. Firstly, increasing access to affordable, evidence-based treatment programs is essential, ensuring that individuals can receive they realize that they are becoming addicted to drugs. Well, thank you so much. This would be the last message I am reading due to time. Please forgive me. Helping youths facing drug abuse and alcohol challenge requires a supportive and non-judgmental approach. Exactly what Title was talking about, and the counsellor as well. And here are some ways to make a positive impact. Number one, listen and understand. Create a safe space for them to open up about their struggles. Encourage honesty, help them understand the risks and consequences of substance abuse, and support groups, introduce them to organizations like Narcotics Anonymous or Alcoholics Anonymous Counseling, connect with them, professional therapist. Thank you so much for that message, and that's exactly what we're talking about. I must say thank you so much to you people for creating time to be with us. That was really educative, and those were great insights. And I must say I have learned, and I promise not. Yes, please. Yes, please.
To everybody that's listening, think about this with our daily lives. Every person that you get close to comes with a door, just like you have a door. So value the circle around you, because whoever comes near you comes to that open door that can lead to a lot of things. So be very sensitive to what energies come near you and the things that you get involved with, because that will either make or ruin you. That's what I wanted to add.
Oh my God, that sounds like Pastor Titu, not the musician. That is really inspiring. Well, thank you so much for coming through, and we really appreciate for that knowledge and insights that have come through. Trust me, that is free knowledge out there, and we are glad. Now, on behalf of the entire TYP team and our guests, I have been your host, Faith Malabo. Do join us again on another beautiful and exciting episode sometime next week on Friday. For now, it's bye-bye, and enjoy the rest of the day.